All views and statements within are made in good faith and do not reflect the opinions or views of the W Number podcast. All named individuals are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law.
I've made way too many requests to obtain my discoveries and my open documents as I've been attempting to preserve an accurate account of the days in question and therefore proving my theory of events in which no crime was committed.
That's what he's saying. So they came at him and they assaulted him. And when the police came...
The police?
No, 2 individuals were assaulting him. And when the police came to break it up, you know, the neighbor said, "Oh, the police are here, watch out." And they said to my brother, "Who do you think sent us?"
You know, I call the police station and I make some accusations, you know, and I make a threat to the police department and the chief, telling them, listen, I got, you know, his career's number, that I'm coming for him, and that I actually threatened to call Katie Couric with Dateline, but I never ended up doing anything. And next thing you know, they just started coming for me.
Welcome back to the W Number, guys. I got a great story today. Probably a dangerous one that exposes some serious police corruption, like serious police corruption. And it's her brother. I'll let her introduce herself and we'll get into this story. It's actually very, very serious. It's something that could cost somebody the rest of their life. And I feel like this is actually a very worthy story and something that we could maybe help a lot of people out and expose the system at the same time, because what's going on is extremely crazy. And I've just, from talking to you today, I get a sense of they're trying to cover something up so that, you know, they could protect themselves. And in the process, they're throwing your brother under the bus because he's the one that he has possession of something that could possibly get them in trouble or get some high-ranking people in trouble.
Yep.
You know, introduce yourself and where you come from.
My name is Nicole. I grew up in Burlington, and I have two brothers who get in trouble. But I'm mostly here talking about my brother Philip right now, who's currently incarcerated in Middleton for something I don't think he did.
Really?
You know?
When you say for something you don't think he did, let's start from the beginning. First of all, just explain a little bit about your story. Where do you come from? And I know we've talked about your uncle or your father. Your father. Yeah.
My dad was the kind of guy you called when you needed a favor. He had a lot of friends in high places, talk about politics, you know, help the police get their jobs. People were very grateful and thankful for him and the people that he knew. And then he had 11 years sober, and he relapsed and he passed away in 2005. And all of a sudden, you know, the police weren't there anymore.
Really?
We asked for help to help my dad before, and they didn't want to do that. They wanted to help him, what he wanted, you know, take him to his drug dealer's house, cover anything up if my dad ever got into any trouble, instead of maybe saying, hey, let's get you some help, Pete. I think there were a few that maybe wanted to help him, and it just makes you wonder why.
Right.
Why didn't they want to really get him his help? It's like, what did he know, maybe? That they were afraid maybe he was a liability now that he was back on drugs again. I'm not sure.
Do you know how he passed away?
He overdosed.
On what drug?
Heroin, I believe.
Yeah. Do you feel like there's any way that heroin could have been planted, something like that, or was it just a good old overdose, like something that happens on a regular basis?
You know, I don't know. He was in a place with people that I wasn't familiar with. He was in the Cape. He was with someone I'd never heard of before. I don't know. I've heard several stories about other people being there and leaving because they didn't want to get in trouble. So it makes you wonder, you know, who else was there? Why is nobody saying anything? Could he have been saved, you know? And
so I know this story is about your brother, but to me has a lot to do with your dad and those tapes. There's some tapes, right? And we could talk about that in a minute. It seems like to me that all this started over them being made aware of the fact that these tapes exist. And then all of a sudden, all this madness started happening, right?
Yeah.
Let's go back in time and kind of give people an example of just how much power maybe your dad did have and how that worked.
He was definitely, I know there was a time where my brother had gotten arrested. I don't know for what. I think he was in the Cambridge jail. My dad called a friend, got him out, you know, and he'd make comments like, it's good to know a judge. It's good to know this, you know. It's good to know the DA, or it's good to know the chief, or, different things like that.
Right. It goes deep, though. It goes deep.
He wasn't any of those things. He wasn't a police officer. He wasn't any type of politics, but he was the one telling you better vote for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You better vote for this guy. He was the one saying to my sister, put this big sign on your car because I want this guy to be selectman or whatever. Like, that's who my dad was, Like, you would have thought he was someone, like, political-wise, but he really wasn't.
He was, in a sense. He was just behind the scenes.
Exactly.
Yeah. I feel like they have more power sometimes, the people that's faces aren't out there.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, what town are we talking about here?
Burlington.
Burlington, Massachusetts.
Yeah.
What kind of town is Burlington?
A small town, I mean, everybody, kind of knew everybody, I feel like, I think my dad's name, he had a real estate, Carter Reed Real Estate, that's where, the police would come, they'd have coffee, you know what I mean? Like, it was not uncommon to see them there, like, or to get pulled over and people know, oh, was I speeding? Oh, no, tell your dad I said hi. Like that kind of stuff you see, I want to say in the movies, right? Like that's what it was. But that was our real life,
Right.
before my dad was using again.
Right. Was your dad using most of your life?
No, he had, I think, 11 years.
Okay.
Sobriety, I think I was about 14 or 15, maybe, when he started using again.
And how old is your brother?
43.
43, and I know you're a woman, but how old are you?
I'm 45.
I'm trying to get a sense of who everybody was and how, like, what they looked like, almost like explain what your father looked like. I'm curious.
Do you want me to show you a picture?
Yeah. Let me see a picture.
All right. Because I try to keep him with me, I think, everywhere I go. Yeah.
Wow.
There he is. Mhm.
The man with all the power right here, right?
Yeah, the secrets, the answers, I don't know. I mean,
Peter C. Carter.
Yeah.
And so is everybody in your family, they got the last name Carter, right? Phil Carter, Peter Carter. So besides your father having all this power and influence, your brother was getting in trouble. He was involved with the law, correct?
My younger brother, Peter, was. And they both were. My mom struggled, like the CHINS petitions and DYS and all these things when my parents separated. And I think that's kind of what started it. I think she was led to believe this would be helpful, and it just wasn't. I think there was a time that my dad went to the court, Woburn District Court, and my mom was trying to have, a CHINS or something, and they said that, they can only be released to whatever. And my dad, I don't know who, well, I think I know who, but, he just paid someone and got my brother out of it,
Right.
one of my brothers. And then, fast forward, and maybe my dad was no longer in his right mind. And then my younger brother, when it was his time to be in a place, my dad wasn't in the right mind to be helping him any longer.
Really?
He didn't have the pull like he had,
Do you think it was the drugs that caused that slip in power for him?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, we asked them to help us, to help him. We just wanted to get him help. We were following him around, doing anything that we just wanted him to get clean and be the dad that we knew him as,
Yeah.
And they were like, no, we're going to arrest you, Phil. You drove the car here. Like, yeah, we drove my dad's car there, like, to try to say, hey, can you help us? Get him some help. Look at him. He's a mess. We found him like this, and they said no. And it's like,
How many siblings do you have altogether?
3.
3.
I have an older sister.
Okay.
She's 5 years older than me. And then my brothers are each 2 years younger and 2 years younger.
Okay. And where are both of your brothers now?
So Philip's in Middleton.
Yep.
And Peter has been sober and doing the right thing for a few years now. He hasn't been in trouble. He's not on probation. But, he's also been accused of things he didn't do.
Right.
They arrested both of them at one time when Peter was actually on camera in court for something else during the alleged crime.
And I know you keep saying, like, even when we're in the car, it's like, it's so hard to believe that this type of corruption exists, right? And we're going to have to break that down for people because it is hard to believe it, right?
It is. There's a lot of times where I think maybe I sound crazy,
Yeah.
But with everything that's gone on, it's more like, that's the only thing I can believe at this point, because otherwise it doesn't make sense. Like, there's not that many coincidences.
And you have a lot of the evidence and paperwork to prove that.
I do, yeah.
It's not just like words and opinions and guesses.
I'm telling his story. This is from his point of view, obviously. He's in Middleton. He can't tell it himself, but he's been wanting to do this for a long time. He's been wanting to do a podcast. He's been wanting to come out with a channel. He's been wanting to get this out there because he's been talking about this for years, and this is where he is. So he writes this letter. He's calling now. I don't know if you want to take it.
Yeah, here, I'll pick it up and I'll
You'll have to hit the one. Put it on the speaker.
Subject to recording and monitoring. Thank you for using Securus. You may start the conversation now.
Hey, what's going on, man?
Yeah. This tablet sucked, yeah.
So we're in the middle of recording this right now, and I'm talking to your sister about the corruption that you guys were dealing with as a family, growing up with the police department. And I know you had wrote a book, and we're going to have to get into a lot of this as we go along. It's so much to break down, and we might have to do it in pieces, but it's such an interesting story to me. Do you want to just start off by explaining a little bit of the circumstances you're in now and why it's so wrong?
I'm being held right now on a couple of different cases, but more so, it's got to do with the dangerousness and holding me on this home invasion, and the dangerousness holding me on a home invasion that I had nothing to do with. And, it's really misrepresenting of the facts and misleading of the grand jury, to get the facts to make the reader infer things, and it's misinterpretation of facts is really what it is, because technically they're not lying in the police report, and then they can hide behind the good faith exception, that everybody was acting in good faith. I've been asking for certain pieces of evidence since, this notification, I guess, is really the big issue. I mean, it's so crazy, all this shit that's going on, but it's really the notification of this DNA CODIS hit, and
let me stop you right there, though, because I want to point out something that everybody says I didn't do it, right? It's a home invasion. I didn't do it. But that doesn't cover this situation here for me. So let's start off with the tapes. We'll start there, right? And how that plays into the fact that you are now being grabbed for this home invasion that happened where you weren't even in the presence of the situation. So why do you, we have to explain why that even is happening. You know what I mean? Why is this happening?
Oh, I mean, there was allegations, that I boosted, calling the police department, the Burlington Police Department, about tapes that I had found.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm sure my sister got into some of the background with my father and what a political figure he was in town.
Yeah.
And going back and listening to some of these tapes, and, it's a lot of voices that I had remembered over the years, and I had been suspicious about my father's death, making allegations in the past about people knowing more information than they knew, So when I'm going back now and listening to some of these tapes, and I hear conversations between my father and the now chief of police of Burlington, talking about supplemental reports disappearing into thin air and, telling my father he could lose his job for these things. I'm like, what the fuck, man? Had protocol been followed, maybe my father would have been here. Maybe if they didn't, act unprofessional and unethically and did what they were supposed to do, maybe my father would still be here. And I'd already, thought that there was some foul play in the beginning of it anyways. But now as I'm reviewing these tapes, I'm like, holy shit, I know who these voices are.
Yeah.
I know exactly what this is crazy. So, I call the police station and I make some accusations, and I make a threat to the police department and the chief, telling them, listen, I got, his career number, that I'm coming for him, and that I actually threatened to call Katie Couric with Dateline, but I never ended up doing anything. And next thing you know, they just started coming for me.
Yeah. And when you say they just started coming for you, what was the first thing that happened?
I started getting calls. I was with my girl, and I was getting a number of calls from, I think it was from her brother and a friend of her brother's who's a known FBI informant and all this crazy shit, whatever, but saying that, that they wanted me for home invasion and all this other shit. They started accusing me of crimes in Burlington, saying that I had committed, I don't know if you know who my girl's brother was, but the Burlington cops were calling my girl's brother, telling him that I'm at his mother's house and that I'm breaking into neighbors' houses all over the neighborhood.
What?
So, it was crazy, dude. They just started making shit up, trying to accuse me of local crimes in Burlington, and like I said, my girl wasn't with me at the time. She's like, they paint a really good picture.
Yeah.
Like, if I wasn't with you this whole time, I would have already did it.
Right. And let me just point this out. Like, this is one of those cases and one of those situations that you can't take anything at face value. Like, you literally have to look into this shit because there really is some serious corruption going on here, right? What are some of the things you heard on those tapes, if you can divulge any of that information?
There was one in particular, like I said, it was I heard quite a few of them, from, and I used to think it was, back in the day, we had known that my dad had done it, like trying to probably just, trying to catch up with my mom and stuff and see what was going on after they split up. But when I'm listening to the tapes, I mean, these are from his office, these are from my grandmother's house. I mean, they're from everywhere, but I've heard myself, I heard my sister, I've heard, other members of my family, people from my father's office. I've heard jail calls between my father and Paula DiCollegiero and people like that back in, early 2000s. But, in particular to stuff about, Tommy Brown, who was I don't know if you're the liaison for the prosecutor's office at the time. He's now the chief. I heard them specifically talking about, Peter, I could lose my job for this. And my father calling him, Tommy Slick. I appreciate it, Slick. He called him. He goes, I appreciate it. My father, he's like, I could lose my job for this. He's like, supplemental reports just disappeared into thin air.
Yeah.
Like it never happened. And I'm like, wait a minute, what? So who knows? And maybe if those charges had been hung over my father's head, if he was really, and you talk about how appreciative he was from my father, and he could never, he wouldn't be where he was without my father's assistance, it's like, if he was really, so grateful to my father, why not use his power to hold things over his head to force him into treatment, maybe jail conditions or something. Instead, he sweeps charges under the rug. And I know that he's negligent in his official capacity, and I know my father's dead. Can I say it to direct result? No. I guess, had he maybe followed protocol, maybe it would have given him the spin dry he needed.
Wow. So you think that they kind of ran him into a grave?
I mean, I think so, no doubt they violated, or didn't follow protocol and allowed my father to continue living that lifestyle. And he did end up, overdosing and dead in a house down in Falmouth. But, that whole thing was suspicious to me anyways. I mean, I don't know if...
I kind of thought the same thing just listening to the story. I kind of thought the same thing, and I kind of insinuated. I asked your sister about that because it's like, it's just very convenient for him to die at this point in time. You know what I mean? But let me ask you.
He was that guy.
Yeah. What do you mean by that guy? Like,
like growing up in town, it was just crazy. Like, again, when I wrote a book, but never thought it was going anywhere. But I talk about one of the main things in my book I talk about in the beginning of it is, me and my brother being probably about, I don't know, maybe 10 or 12 years old. And we were with my dad and we left his office. We're flying home to get ready for baseball practice. And I remember him in his little Toyota, and we're flying through town. And I just remember he goes blown by a cop doing radar. And the cop pulled up behind us. And my father starts swearing, oh, shit, Jesus Christ. To me and my brother are like, oh, shit, Dad did it this time. He's worried about the cop behind him. And he's like, that guy, I don't give a shit about him. I'm worried about the purchase and sale I left on my desk. I don't got time. I'm supposed to be meeting somebody up at the center to sign these papers, right after practice. I got to stop at the office to get these.
Wait, he's worried about what? I couldn't hear you.
A purchase and sale agreement he had left on his desk. He was a real estate agent,
Oh, okay.
So we're thinking he should be worried about the cop chasing us. He's not.
Yeah.
So I remember we go flying up my grandmother's house street, and, he pulls in the neighbor's driveway, passes my grandmother's house, and pulls in the neighbor's driveway across the street. It's like a hill. You pull up, put the car in neutral, and rolls back down the hill, put it in drive, and you pull back up in front of my grandmother's house. And I just remember seeing the cops coming up the street at us. And my father jumps out of the car, and he's like, boys, get in the house. Let's go. Get in there and get changed. You got 2 minutes. And everything slowed down. It was like slow motion at that point. And I just remember watching the cop come up. My father's out of the car. He's approaching the cop. The cop gets out of the car, hand on his gun, on his hip, and he's shaking. And he said, sir, get back in the car. And my father's yelling at the freaking, it was scary, you know, it's like you're 10 and 12 years old and you think your father's about to get shot. And this kid's totally justified in doing it. My father's approaching the car. And next thing you know, you hear the screeching, you can hear the radio squawking. And a couple minutes later, you know, it's all happening really fast. There's another cruiser coming up the street, and it's a captain. And he, like, jumps out of the car, and he yells at the young kid and tells him to put the gun back in his holster and get back in his car and get the fuck out of here. It's like, you have any idea who this man was? You know, he'll have to get a job and all this shit. And me and my brother were just standing there like, holy shit, my father almost just got shot. And the captain shows up and yells at the fucking young cop, tells him to get back in his car and get the fuck out of here. It was just like incredible. Like, do you have any idea who this man was and how powerful he is? You know, and that was really like, wow, just an eye opener.
Wow, that is an eye opener. It's like, it makes you wonder, like, exactly what kind of power he had over them and why they treated him like that. You know what I mean?
They used to say, like, I guess I've heard it for years. You know, everybody used to say, what the hell does Peter Carter have on Teddy Ferguson? Teddy Ferguson used to be the chief of police. It was one of my father's best friends. So he knew that my father was really popular in town, and, you know, Teddy wanted to run for selectman. So he had lost, I think, once or twice, and he asked my father, I want you to help me campaign. Well, I remember late nights at my dad's office, him campaigning for Teddy Ferguson and Story Ship. They won by a landslide.
Yeah.
Well, it was either, and it might have been vice versa, or it might have been Joe and Pemba first, but shortly after that, Joe and Pemba wanted to do the same thing. A prominent business attorney, you know, in town, he wanted to run for selectman as well. So he enlisted my father's help as well. Wow. What do you know? Knocks it out of the park. So my father's got 2 of the votes right there. There was a third, I'm not 100% sure. I want to say it was Moody. There was another selectman. So now my father had 3 out of the 5 selectmen's votes in his pocket.
Wow.
So nothing happened in town without his blessing.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. You know, so there was rigged elections and all kinds of shit happened back in the early 2000s. You know, that had been, you know, I remember all of this going on at the time, but, you know, the selectmen voted on how many police department employees are going to get hired, how many fire department employees are going to get hired, and, you know, what number in the civil service test they're going to pick from. You know, I remember one year, I think it was, you know, my Uncle Joe, 37. I think Tommy Brown was close by, 37, 38, 39. They had been told sorry. They went up and interviewed for Burlington Police. They said, hey, listen, try it again in 4 years. We're all set.
Yeah.
So that wasn't going to work for my father. My father was pissed. Like, I didn't do all this shit for my people to get kicked to the curb. See you later.
So it seems like your father had that whole town in the bag.
He did, 100%. There was no greater power in that town. You got to have cost their jobs. I think I got arrested in a stolen car when I was like 13. I was joyriding with one of my friends or something dumb. I never even saw a courtroom.
Yeah.
You know, it was just see you later. Yeah, it was wild.
So, hey,
my father having that kind of job.
Hey, I appreciate you calling in right now. Let me finish this interview with your sister. We're gonna get into your story a little more, and I'm gonna be in touch with you. We're gonna peel this whole thing apart, layer by layer, and I'm gonna follow it.
I really do.
I'm gonna follow it right through to the trial. Your trial's in 4 weeks, right?
That's it. When we're going, there ain't nothing stopping me. I mean, she'll tell you about all the shit that I've done and predictions I've made. Started studying the law. I got my PO fight in Lowell Superior. Like, there's been a lot of shit going on. I hope that she's, you know, I've got some documents that I filled out some, you know, 26 or something page report, and I've got some other documents on their way out to her now, but I'll make sure that you get updated copies of everything.
A unit that you described the size of someone's large living room, and 30 men in 15 bunks running up and down the right side and up and down the left side, perhaps 3 feet between the ends of the bunks. And that's the entire unit, except for a small area for the facilities down the end. I don't know how they do it, because I feel claustrophobic just visiting there for a period of time.
Your brother was pretty close to your father in the sense that he was, you know, he witnessed him in getting him all out of trouble, and he, you know, just the story about him getting chased by the police, and your father's worried about the sale agreement on his desk, like, fuck this guy, makes him chase him all over town. And then when the guy comes out with his gun drawn, the captain swings through like, hey, what the fuck, do you know who this guy is? Like, right. Wow, dude, that's amazing. That blows my mind right there.
That's how it was, you know? I mean, I wasn't there that day, but that's the kind of power that he had.
And he said he had 3 selectmen in his pocket, right? Or he got 3 elected.
And yeah.
Essentially.
Right. He definitely ran the campaign. It was, I believe, at my father's office was the headquarters.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So that helps, especially when your sons are getting in trouble, to get them out of trouble or whatever you're doing in that sense. But I mean, he must have had other things going on, bigger things that wasn't just getting your sons out of trouble. Like,
right.
And from what I hear about these conversations on these tapes, which we're going to get a hold of, correct? Like we're doing that, right? Yeah. These conversations, whether I'm going to put them out or not,
right?
Because it could just be dangerous.
We have to be careful.
We have to be very careful. This whole situation, it seems like they wanted your brother gone, and now he's gone. They wanted your father gone, and now he's gone.
Yeah.
Right? This information on these tapes is extremely dangerous.
Yeah, he's been talking about it, and naturally he's incarcerated, so he's talking on a recorded line, which we know they're listening to.
Yeah.
So he won't tell me where they are on the phone. You know, he's very careful about that. He doesn't want me to go and get them by myself, not without a lawyer or, you know, someone. He believes that that's why they've been following him. He thinks they were trying to get a hold of him and you know, do away with the tapes first. That's his theory of why they were following him so much. Because if you're following someone and they've done something wrong, you can arrest them. And if you're following them and you have a reason to be doing that, you're going to document the fact that you were following them.
Yeah.
I have a reason to be following him. He's committing crimes or whatever. Why are you not documenting it if you're following him? And he claims they were following him without a doubt. But yet I have no paperwork proof of them doing that.
Yeah, why would they make paperwork proof though?
Exactly.
Of doing illegal things like investigations off the books.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
And they've done it before where it's called a multi-jurisdictional investigation where, you know, the state police and Billerica and Burlington, they all joined together. You know, they've done that before and followed him. But that was, you know, that was documented. I mean, I witnessed that. They followed me before because he was in the car with me. So I've seen that. But this time, you know, it's like, oh, well, can you see if there was state police involved? I'm asking the attorneys, you know, when I ask for things like certain pieces of discovery that he thinks will show there was no probable cause and things like this, it's like they're fighting me on it. And I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense. And I'm like, well, why don't we just get it for him? And that way it will at least, you know, shut him up or prove him wrong. Like, if nothing else, prove him wrong. Get me the piece of paper. It's been 11 months. He should have all of his discovery, and he still does not.
It seems like your father knew there was a reason to be recording, right? Not just for his girlfriend or something like that he was worried about, because he's recording phone calls on a line he knew was recorded with people that are important in, like, DeCollegiero and things like that. What do you think he was making these conversation recordings for?
That's what we're not clear on. Like, was it really him? Was someone else doing it? Like, we don't, I mean, I know that he recorded phone calls at my mom's house, so I think it was him. And I don't know, he used to make comments to my brother, like little things that he's now thinking of. Like, he knew what he was talking about. He knew what he was doing. He was like throwing me a bone. You know, maybe he knew I'd figure it out one day, but he'd make these little comments about, you know, you'll figure it out, kid. You know, stuff like that he thinks now maybe that's what he was referring to. Just covering his ass, I guess you could say, right? I'm going to record this stuff in case I ever need it, or I don't know.
And did you ever feel like at any point in time that your father's life was in danger?
No, other than, I mean, he was using drugs. So, right, you're afraid every day that someone's going to overdose. But
And when did he start using drugs exactly? Because it seems like what I'm trying to get at is, did he start using because of the stress of what was going on?
Probably. I want to say I was maybe 14, so 14, 15, something like that, 94, 95.
So let's talk about the situation with your brother. Start from the beginning, right? You know, we find out about he threatens him about the tapes, right? And they start coming for him. What is your experience and what do you see going on at this point?
I mean, my brother's not an angel. He's been in trouble before, so I feel like he's an easy target. He's an easy target. Like, I know he was accused of breaking into houses around my mom's house in a neighborhood. The police were telling people, there was emails going around saying it was him when he hadn't been arrested. Why are the police saying you did something? And if you did, why are you not arrested for it? You shouldn't be saying that if you haven't at least arrested him for it. Was other people.
Let me say this real quick too. Another crazy point is that he had an FBI informant call him and tell him about a home invasion that he was wanted for, that he literally wasn't even there, and he wasn't even there, right? According to him and you, and what it really seems like to me.
Right. I mean, I wasn't there, so I can't say he wasn't there, but I believe he was not there. I don't believe he had anything to do with this.
Okay, so let's talk about that, because I believe you too, and we've already talked about it. So let's talk about the chain of events from the home invasion from your point of view.
For him, he was getting phone calls saying that there was a warrant for his arrest for home invasion, and he started calling his attorney saying, is there a warrant for me? I'm being followed, but yet I'm not being arrested. When every time he'd call his attorney, the attorney would say, no, there's no warrant. They're saying I'm going to be arrested for a home invasion. And they were making comments to him like, they're going to plant stuff on you. You think you're good. You're not that good, you know. And then I want to say he was assaulted at a home. And when someone was assaulting him, I don't know that I want to use names. I'm not sure if he's going to, but you know, he doesn't want to tell on certain people, right? So
yeah, I mean, he's not going to be a rat.
That's what he's saying. So they came at him and they assaulted him. And when the police came,
the police?
No, 2 individuals were assaulting him. And when the police came to break it up, you know, the neighbor said, oh, the police are here, watch out. And they said to my brother, who do you think sent us?
What? That's insane.
And these are the very 2 people who were saying, you're going to get arrested for a home invasion. You're going to get arrested for a home invasion. They're going to plant a gun on you. And then fast forward a few months, and boom, he goes to court one day for an unrelated matter. And they're like, oh, by the way, you're being arraigned for this that took place like a year ago and, you know, last April. And you're being arraigned for a home invasion with a weapon, like a gun. Like my brother's never had, you know, weapon charges. He's never it's just not him. And it's not him in the physical description that the person gives about the person who was in the home anyway. So it's like, how can you say that my brother's 6-something, 300 pounds when he's just not, you know? And I'm sure his arrest photo is going to show that he's nothing of that size, but yet he's in jail for it.
Let's talk about how the evidence that placed him at the scene of the crime came about.
Apparently, after the initial home invasion, the police come, they do their initial, you know, they take their photos and they do their investigation and they leave. And they have a description, one of which the person states, it was my nephew and a bigger gentleman, 6 feet, 290. My brother's not that. And they leave. And then they come back a few days later, and I guess they ask, and I read the grand jury minutes, like it says, did anybody eat or drink anything while they were here? And, you know, that's just like a really random question.
So this is happening how long after?
I want to say it was a year, but I don't remember. I've got paperwork. I could look and see when.
So
from when the police came back, a few days. It had been a few days. And they said, oh, yes, someone ate cookie wrappers, as a matter of fact. The other guy ate some, you know, cookies, and he spit the wrappers on the floor. And then all of a sudden they find these cookie wrappers that apparently have my brother's DNA on it.
And in the pictures, those cookie wrappers weren't there?
No, those are the only photos. I've seen pictures of all the pictures that they took, every bit of floor. Where the cookies, where they say they were found, those pictures were left out in the discovery that they sent.
He tells him he has the recordings, right? So now they have this federal FBI informant calling him, telling him, look, they're going to charge you with a home invasion.
Yeah.
We need those tapes, or else this is what's going to happen. They gave him a forewarning, and then when they needed to, they came back to the scene of a crime that they thought they could pin on him, and boom, now they got the evidence they needed or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Very flimsy evidence.
Yeah.
But that's what it looks like.
That's what it looks like. Yeah.
Wow, this is insane. So.
But people like that. People like DNA. You know, a jury is going to go, oh, DNA? Oh, he's there, dead to rights. Unfortunately. People that don't know.
And do you have the pictures from before and after?
Not with me. He has them.
Yeah. And did they take pictures again a second time where the cookie wrappers were or whatever?
Yeah, they took a picture of the wrapper, and I believe that the background is not the same, you know, floor. Like, so if it was the kitchen floor and it's all the same, wouldn't the background behind the cookie be the same? The kitchen floor, it's like zoomed in and then way zoomed out. It doesn't appear to be the same.
Huh.
I haven't seen it. That was my brother's interpretation. Like it.
Right? Talk about what happened with that truck and how that got.
So while the two masked men were in the house, one of them leaves with the uncle's canteen truck, takes his bank card, goes to the ATM, withdraws money. He's on camera. I think he's wearing a mask, but and so they obviously use surveillance from, the bank and, all throughout the town to see where this canteen truck was going. And when they leave the house with the canteen truck, they see on camera that there's a white SUV following that. And the person gets out of the canteen truck, gets into the white SUV, and they leave. And, I don't know how many days later, they ping Richie's phone. It's up in Lowell. They find the white SUV. They say a larger male sitting in that white SUV. They pull him out of the car. They tell him he's wanted for questioning in a home invasion. He matches the description. The car is the same as seen on the video surveillance following this canteen truck. And I believe they let him go.
The shoes were the same, right?
I don't think they looked at his shoes. I don't think they knew that yet. That's in the uncle's grand jury minutes. He testifies about the shoes.
Right. And did he had those shoes on, right? Like, these were like a thing with blue suede shoes.
There's something about some weird suede dress shoes and they're square-toed. There's a guy that was incarcerated with my brother that says, hey, I didn't know you were in trouble for that. Like, you didn't do that. I know the guy who did it. He's a weirdo. He wears these suede dress shoes or something. And don't you know that when the uncle gives his testimony, he talks about these shoes and how he'll never forget the shoes. My brother I've never seen him wear suede shoes, It's just no.
Linked it to that home invasion?
Yes.
What did they find?
I want to say like a black mask or something. I mean, we can't say for sure that it's the exact one, but...
So after they find this van, right, and they see this dude, how long is it from that point until they come get your brother?
My brother, was in jail for something else, and he was going to court for something else. And when he came, upstairs, like, they said, oh, you're going to be arraigned on, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, what are you talking about? And it had been, don't quote me, but a few months at least. He didn't get arrested until September. And I want to say that took place in April. And that didn't happen right away. He had already been sitting there. So he was kind of blindsided, like, what am I being charged with now? Like, I've been in here. What could I possibly have done?
And what was he in there for at that time?
At that time, I honestly don't know which case is which, but he was already in there when this came about. Maybe a driving thing or...
Yeah. You know your brother, right? Like, would he be fighting and going to trial if he was innocent? I mean, could he be hoping?
He's taken plea deals, obviously, in the past, and that's the other piece of why he's like wanting to start a podcast, or because people don't know and they think these lawyers are here to help you, but he thinks that's not really necessarily the truth. They're there to protect your rights. That doesn't mean that they're going to get you a not guilty. Right. That's really not always what they're looking to do. As long as they protect your rights, maybe they're going to help the Commonwealth convict you. As long as we do it in without
making them look bad.
Yeah, and and they do the best they can, and they come to this, deal. Let's face it. What is it? 90% of cases ends in a plea deal. Yeah, that's what they're there to do.
Maybe more.
So he's taken plenty of plea deals in the past, and that's why he has such a huge record now. He's not innocent, but I know that he's been in trouble for things that, like, he'll tell you, some of the stuff I didn't do. There's things I didn't get caught for, that maybe I should have been gone to jail for. But that's why. If they say, hey, you know what, you're going to get time served, who's not going to say, okay, I'll take it? And that's happened in the past.
And I know your brother's he's wrote a book, right? Or he started to write a book. What is that book about? And explain a little bit about it.
That he would call the unit, basically saying that these lawyers working with, the judges, working with the police, that it's all one unit. That's what he's calling it, the unit. Like, they're not who they say they are. Like, okay, your win looks different than mine. Like, as a defendant, my win is not guilty, right? So does your win look the same? And so he's asked that question to his attorneys before, and they kind of dance around it. Well, I have to, balance, this and my ethical this, and, but really, what does that mean? That means, can you say if one attorney is not treating you the right way, is this attorney going to go against that attorney? No, of course not. It's like the oath they take, right?
Right. They're going to have each other's back. They're like doctors in that sense. You know what I mean? You file a medical malpractice lawsuit, and no doctor wants to testify against them, especially if they work in the same building. They're going to be like, hell no. You know what? I've been through this.
Yes, I know.
Myself with the medical malpractice lawsuit. And it took me forever to even get an expert. And then when I did, they didn't want to say anything bad about the situation. You know what I mean? It's like, give me a break. And then after, 3 of them come out and say, oh, well, this lady's a monster. And it's like, oh, my case is already dismissed. Now you can talk about it, right? But it's some fucked up shit. But lawyers do the same thing. And they have this thing called the favor bank, right? It's like they'll get one defendant convicted and fuck him over in order to get another one off and let go. You know what I mean? And it could be some, for whatever reason they're favoring that person, but it doesn't matter. Like, that's not justice. That's, you know what I mean? A favor.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, but how does your brother fall into all this? Like, why is he pursuing this book, and why did he start writing it? Is there a specific situation that caused him to do so?
I mean, I think just that it's been going on for so long. Like, he's tried to say stuff in the past. He said something to one attorney prior. Like, I know you basically set me up. I know what you did. I know what you're about. I know who you work with, who's involved. I mean, he said that to an attorney. I don't know. If I was an attorney, I'd probably tell him to fuck off. That attorney did not do that. Instead, he goes and says, this kid might be the smartest kid I've ever met.
Wow.
So, and do you know where that attorney is now? Sitting on a bench.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
And did your father get any judges put in place?
I don't think so.
You said after he passed away, there was a lot of like things changed between you and the police department, your family and the police department. What exactly changed?
It wouldn't be something, you know, you see them and you feel like, I mean, maybe they're looking down on you, or, you know, when my youngest brother Peter was, you know, a mess on drugs. I mean, I don't know, 90 pounds, soaking wet, and they come to get him on a warrant. And some of the times, you know, you want that. You want him to get some help. You need him to sober up a little bit.
Right.
You know, and they do things like step on the back of his pants. I mean, like, to drop his pants while he's walking. Like, he's not going anywhere, you know, or, I mean, saying things about my dad, like, oh, you're going to overdose like your dad did. And I was like, I'm fucking standing right here. It's one thing to say to him because he's probably not going to remember tomorrow. I mean, wicked shitty, but I'm still standing here and I hear you. Like, that's just messed up. Whereas before, I don't think they would have ever said something like that.
The reason why I think it's important to point that out is because it's almost like they were angry at him for some reason. But while he was alive, they acted like he was his best friend.
That's right.
Why?
I don't know. I think he knew something. Like, there's more on these tapes. I don't think my brothers even listened to all of them. I don't think he didn't know what he had initially. I think he was just like, oh, this is fun. You know, like, oh, let's listen to these. Like, you know, some of them were just nothing. Like, I don't know, him talking to his girlfriend or something like that. Like, nothing of value. And but then he just kind of set them aside and was like, oh, whatever. And then he made that phone call.
And how did he get in possession of these tapes, you know?
I believe it was my uncle.
Yeah.
When the house that my dad, he lived with his parents. And then when my grandfather passed away, I think my uncle and my aunt moved in, and I think they had given my brother it. Say, hey, this is some of your dad's stuff that was still in the house. He kind of just set it aside thinking it was, you know, stuff with like baseball pictures, like of my brothers when they played baseball, and my dad was coaching the team, and, you know, little towels that said Carter Reed Realty on it, like from his office, like stuff like that, not knowing there was all these tapes inside. And
have you personally spoken to the other defendant in this case at all?
No.
No? I'm just curious to see what he would say if we got him on the phone to talk to him.
He wrote a letter to my brother.
Oh, he did?
He did.
Okay, what does it say, you know?
He basically just says his uncle is a piece of shit, and that he's been in trouble before, and, you know, he's not going to testify. Yeah, somebody in the jail said Richie Gardner's name, and my brother heard it and was like, hey, wait a second, how do you know him? That's my co-defendant. And the kid looks at him and says, how'd they get you for that? You didn't do it, I know who did it. And Philip's like, no shit, I didn't do it. Right. And he's like, oh, I know who did it, blah, blah, blah. And then the next thing you know, I get a letter. So whoever this person was inside obviously said to so-and-so, whoever, oh my God, I got Richie's co-defendant. And, you know, I think sometimes the things in jail, like, people find out more in jail than on the street sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes, you know, depending on what the information is and what it's about, I guess. it seems like they chose this opportunity rather than to take your brother out of the picture, you know what I mean? At least get him away from those tapes for a little while, find out if they can blackmail him into giving him, maybe we'll drop this charge, you find
Figure out where they are.
Yeah, maybe that too. But do you think that they know that this other guy was actually the person? And because it seems like they must, like they found a freaking black mask in the truck that got stolen out of the parking lot and he's not even charged. But in the police report, you said that it says suspect next to his name. It says suspect next to Richie's name, victim next to the victim's name, but your brother's name's nowhere in it.
No.
And then how does he come about that's the big question. It's like, where does that, how does that play out in trial? I guess we're gonna have to find that out, but I can't wait to see this through into trial. I feel like, is there anything that we should be talking about right now that's is very important to this? That we should be talking about?
I don't know. I think we've covered it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 4 weeks away and he's taking it. I mean, his lawyer says, I want more time. And my brother's like, I'm done taking time. I feel as though they're pushing me down the road, trying to just get as much time from me as they can, thinking that I'm going to take a deal like I've done in the past, and I'm just not. Like, let them show all their cards. Now, when you get this close, you have to show who you have for an informant or what you have for discovery or all that stuff as we get closer.
Right.
So he's like, I'm done.
Right.
And so
and
now
I can't wait to see the
4
discovery.
weeks away, and I don't know.
I mean, a lot of discovery is probably right there, right?
Yep.
Has he gotten a full discovery package? He must have, right?
No? No, there's always missing pages. There's always missing pictures. I have like all the communications between me and his attorney where I ask for things and then I re-ask for things and I say, did you send it? And then the mail gets lost and he'll have to resend it. And
really? So you think they're messing with the mail too and all that?
Someone is messing with the mail. Although the jail, they say, obviously it's not them. And the attorney says, I sent it. And I say, well, my God, that's a federal crime. And now my brother's things are just out in the open. Can you tell me where you mailed that from? Because I want to file a report. And quite honestly, you should want to do the same.
Right.
You're an attorney. Like, these documents are just, it was a zip drive with all his stuff was on there. And my brother opened the envelope. It said zip drive enclosed. But there was no zip drive.
What? And damn, this is so complicated.
It's a lot. It seems like it's one thing after another, like in the delay. Like, it's a delay. I feel like an intentional delay.
And so you guys feel like you haven't even gotten all the discovery yet?
No. Nope.
They're intentionally withholding certain things.
That's what my brother strongly believes. It's an intentional withholding, not an accident or not, we were acting in good faith. I didn't realize I didn't give you all the odd pages or even pages or, no, I didn't realize that. Well, I texted that to you on purpose. Like, I purposely text everything so that I have it in writing saying, no, we did ask you for this on this date. And you just sent it again and now it's still missing pages or.
Right. What about the lawyer? Who is he and where did he come from?
The lawyers are appointed.
Okay.
When you can't afford one will be appointed to you.
Yup.
So, but who pays the lawyers, right?
Yeah.
They're not privately paid. We didn't pay him out of our pocket. The Commonwealth pays these lawyers.
Yeah. That's what I was wondering, if it was a personal attorney or if they appointed him. Because if they appoint him, they could appoint him somebody that they know is in their pocket.
That's right. And so who pays them? The same people that pay who? The police, the judges, right? The Commonwealth of Mass. That's what he talks about, the unit. It's all one.
I feel like this story is literally just starting because the tapes in the trial are coming and everything's going to come out in the wash, right? We're going to find out.
Yeah.
Man, I appreciate you for doing this with me and coming to me with this story.
Thank
it's
you.
extremely interesting and not for nothing, it could actually help your brother. I hope we could get him sprung because it's not right, dude. It's not fair.
No.
You know what I mean? If you want to lock somebody up, like you said, lock them up for something they did do. You know what I mean? And if you can catch him for something that he got away with, go ahead and do that. But don't fudge papers and, act on corruption to suit your own needs, because the police department, in my eyes right now, is not acting to serve the public. They're acting to serve their own interests. You know what I mean? And protecting themselves.
Yep.
And there's something to protect. What is there to protect? That's the question, right? Well, we're gonna find out, I guess, right? Stay tuned. This story's definitely not over. We're gonna follow it right to trial. He's got trial in 4 weeks, correct? What's the trial date?
September 8th.
September 8th. And I think I'll try to go to the court. We'll go to the court. We'll do all that. You know what I mean? we're gonna dive into this. You know what I mean? I'll go through all the paperwork. We'll find the pictures. I want to see what they're not giving. You know what I mean? I want to know what they're not providing, because there's got to be specific reasons for each one of those papers that's not there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What's missing is the most important part.
Right.
So we got to fill in those blanks in order for it to come to light, right? And in order to do that, we need to go to the tapes. The tapes at the beginning, and it's like what spurred all this to happen? You know what I mean? Why are they attacking your brother? And it has something to do with your father and what he knew and what's on those tapes, right? Very interesting. We'll see. So appreciate it. And once again,
Thank you.
I'll be in touch. Thank you.
This is the letter that I had written to Attorney Verma, I don't know, a month and a half ago, 6 weeks ago, and then obviously took some time to type. Attorney Verma, with all due respect, I've made way too many requests to obtain my discovery within my open docket, as I've been attempting to preserve an accurate account of the days in question and therefore proving my theory of events in which no crime was committed. However, my then attorney of record had without a doubt been working in tandem together, colluding with the Commonwealth to assist in the further suppression of key pieces of the suppression of evidence that would alert this defendant, myself, to additional discovery, potential Brady material, and the suppression of the overall bad faith within the Commonwealth Police Department. I believe this all to be a form of reprisal set forth by those attorneys resulting from allegations against a personal friend and a former colleague. This is not about ineffectiveness, incompetence, or even less than sufficient representation. It is more so about the intentional stonewalling of my defense and blatant disregard for my wishes to proceed, displaying behavior more consistent with someone who would be my adversary and not my ally. But make no mistake, please. That is exactly the behavior and conduct therein demonstrated by both of those former attorneys, Mark Mulligan and George Olson. I am more than confident I can prove these claims and intend to do just that within the current complaint issued before the BDO. What I no longer have much confidence in is my ability in finding willing, able, and competent representation. Now knowing what I know and the clear and obvious duress one will face, helping to make an honest effort in applying sincere ethics and integrity along with the facts. The inevitable exposure of putting one's colleagues in career jeopardy is no doubt all things being counter-conducive to the ascending progression of one's own career. These are some of the biggest challenges to which I find myself facing. Until the spotlight stemming from the investigation's revelations subsequent to former complaints issued against these former attorneys shines, exposing the filth of this corruption. What I would like to believe is that you are not aiding in these bad faith efforts. However, supporting evidence would suggest otherwise. It even appears you are following suit right behind them. A consistent failure to comply with my many of my requests, over and over. Some very specific, perhaps not as readily available items, as well as the more elementary and prerequisite asks, have been met with your production of non-relevant and unrequested materials and the appearance of intentional erroneous reference to more specific materials requested by this defendant. Moreover, trying to discredit this defendant by attempting to use misinformation and the misinterpretation of information as a whole in what appears to be the overall failure to conduct any type of investigation. Failure to utilize private investigators to corroborate or even vet the information pertaining to my accounts of the days in question. All things that would, in an attempt to deter this defendant from certain avenues that would, in my belief, inevitably prove the wrongdoing of the police department, the bad faith within the Commonwealth, along with the head-scratching ineffectiveness of your colleagues. It seems to be the obvious consensus among all involved. Delay, delay, delay. In hopes that time would conveniently and just so happen to aid in evidence being unavailable and no longer able to be obtained and or preserved. All staying on par with the hopes of said disregard and noncompliance to any and all requests would eventually compel this defendant into a request or demand for withdrawal of counsel all of which becoming more and more probable. Either way, in no uncertain terms, having what should be an asset, in fact be a liability and detriment, makes an already uphill battle become seemingly insurmountable without the assistance of being able to preserve certain evidence. The limited access to necessary resources and legal material adds another quagmire. I'm just trying to expose the truth, yet the Commonwealth, along with my zealous advocates, seem to be actively and knowingly pursuing and in the least steering towards its suppression. That's as real as it gets, folks, but I ask why. My position has not changed since day one when your assistance was requested by the court to assess my competence to represent myself, which is now evident that the professional charged by the court to conduct said assessment found it difficult to corroborate any reason for their involvement. I really felt it necessary to reach out and hopefully establish the position of everyone involved, and more specifically, the fact of the matter that the police were clearly being untruthful and acting unlawfully. It seems the connections of the chief of therein that particular police department is directly related to the cause of this behavior, therefore the reason why I'm not in any real position to receive any reliable assistance in or outside the courts to what is in effect exposing the wrongdoings of a former colleague and friend to many whom frequently conduct their day-to-day affairs therein, the Woburn District Court, creating an obvious conflict of interest. I get it. I simply ask, please, allow me the rights afforded me that entitle me access to the discovery that is undisputably necessary to properly defend myself. This is getting ridiculous. For the record, when I did fill you in and fully bring you up to speed on the essential facts of my situation and the totality of circumstances, to include but not limited to my recent complaints brought forward in the Woburn District Court, along with the unethical and unprofessional conduct carried out by both my former attorneys, Mark Mulligan and George Olson, you simply dismissed my claims based solely on your personal friendship or perhaps kinship. No inquiries, investigations, or even cursory attention to the evidence I've provided you. Your evidence to contradict my claims? No, there's no way they could do that. I know those gentlemen, insinuating that you were sure these men could have never treated me with less than professional conduct. Look, I know how it works. You're nothing if not loyal. These, my fellow colleagues, brothers, sisters, and then me, a convicted felon with a 20-plus page record. Does this no longer entitle me to the age-old adage of what's right is right? The bad faith intentions and actions set forth and carried out by all parties involved become acceptable and justified. Am I no longer welcome to the rights and procedures afforded to everyone by law? This treatment of me, at least, is not getting old. It's expired. If you feel I'm questioning your intelligence, it simply means you know what you are doing. No? It's that I'm begging you to refrain from attempting to insult my intelligence. Please. It feels that it's as though I'm fighting one all-powerful entity, which is the topic of the book that I have written already. And it appears I may need to publish a revised edition detailing this series of events. Stay tuned.
There you go.